Imagine a river of tiny, jewel-like dots flowing across a canvas until, from a distance, an entire city of people appears, breathing, sunlit, immobile. That is Georges Seurat's optical magic, meticulous, scientific, and quietly daring. He painted with a patience that looked like mathematics and a heart that felt like music. In this film, we will walk through his great parade of works: a Sunday afternoon on the island of La Grande Jatte, Bathers at Asnières, Le Chahut, the Circus, Les Poseuses, and discover how a method of small colored marks remade the way we see light, color, in modern life. Expect careful facts, sudden curiosities, and a few poetic surprises. Stay with me. The dots will come together. Georges Seurat, biographical portrait. Born in Paris on December 2nd, 1859, Seurat grew up in a France on the brink of modernity. His family was modestly comfortable. His early schooling included rigorous drawing lessons and classical training that introduced him to line, proportion, and a long tradition of academic draftsmanship. Yet even as a student, he was restless with convention. He took periods of formal study, worked in studios, and, like many young Frenchmen, served in the military for a short time in his early 20s. Those years taught him discipline and a taste for order, traits that would later shape his radical experiments with color and form. Seurat absorbed two seemingly distant currents: the old academy's attention to draftsmanship and the new science of color. He studied at the École des Beaux-Arts and spent hours copying from museums, learning how to draw the human figure with proportion and care. At the same time, he read and studied contemporary color theory, ideas from scientists like Michel-Eugène Chevreul and later writers such as Ogden Rood, who described how colors interact when placed side by side. These theories promised an optical mixing of color. Place separate pigments close together, and the eye will fuse them. That idea would become Seurat's central tool. Seurat's public breakthrough came with a set of works that married scale and method. A Sunday Afternoon on the island of La Grande Jatte is his most famous masterpiece. A large, still park populated by carefully posed figures, each rendered with minute touches of color. Bathers at Asnières, an earlier, quieter river scene, shows the same concern for measured composition, but with a grittier suburban air. Les Poseuses presents studies of models in a studio, almost a painting about painting itself. These works announce a signature: canvases built from discrete marks that rely on optical mixture rather than blended brushstrokes. The effect is at once exacting and luminous. Seurat's path pivoted in the early 1880s. After Bathers at Asnières, he pushed from observation toward a method. A Sunday Afternoon, started a few years later, was not an instant inspiration, but a programmatic project, an exploration of scale, social types, and optical color. Another turning point was his friendship with Paul Signac and other younger artists who shared an enthusiasm for Divisionism, the practice of separating color into individual strokes or dots. Around 1884-86, Seurat moved from experiments to a manifesto in pigment. His canvases grew larger, his technique more disciplined, his aims more public. Seurat's most famous technique is known popularly as Pointillism, tiny dots of pure pigment, but the more precise term is Divisionism, the deliberate separation of colors into discrete touches so the eye performs the mixing. He painted with small brushes and short strokes, often on primed canvas, layering chromatic dots rather than blending wet paint into gradients. He tested color relationships carefully. Complementary colors placed side by side to intensify vibration, cool blues near warm oranges to make air sing. For Seurat, technique was empirical, a measured experiment in optics, not merely a stylistic flourish. Listen carefully. His dots are proposals about how light happens. Some of Seurat's boldest statements are about performance and pose. Les Poseuses shows three models in a studio, one turned toward us, inviting a meditation on labor and display. Le Chahut captures a can-can dance in rigid choreography, where movement is suggested through patterned repetition rather than blurred gesture. The Circus and Parade de Cirque explore the popular entertainment world, crowds, banners, and performers staged almost as a diagram. These paintings return us to an essential Seurat paradox. He paints crowds and spectacles with a formal calm, transforming motion into architecture of color. Across Seurat's works recur themes: modern leisure, the city's new rhythms, the tension between solitude and the crowd. Parks, riverbanks, circuses, and theaters are settings where people inhabit a modern anonymity. They are together yet apart, statuesque and alive. He was fascinated by social types, the worker by the Seine, the bourgeois on the lawn, and by how public space structures private feeling. Symbolically, his ordered surfaces can feel like a social map, dots as citizens, color as atmosphere. That motif, society rendered as patterned space, makes his paintings both documentary and dreamy. Seurat's new methods stunned viewers and critics. Some applauded the clarity and modernity, others mocked the doll-like stillness of his figures and the perceived coldness of a scientifically ordered art. A Sunday afternoon provoked debate at exhibitions. Was this high art or a clever trick? Critics called it mechanical, admirers called it rigorous. A recurring controversy concerned whether optical mixing robbed paint of painterly warmth. Yet the controversy is part of the story. Every great shift in art disturbs. Seurat's cool surface forced audiences to ask how we perceive color, form, and the social world. Seurat died young in 1891, at 31, too soon for a full late career. Yet his influence rippled widely. He helped found Neo-Impressionism, a movement that encouraged artists to think scientifically about color. Signac and other followers expanded his ideas. Painters of the 20th century absorbed his emphasis on structure and formality. Beyond technique, Seurat's insistence on deliberate composition reshaped how artists considered modern life, how crowds could be painted as pattern, how light could be engineered. Museums today still place his canvases as a hinge between Impressionism and modernist order. Here are a few surprises. 1. Seurat rarely painted anecdote. He preferred types and arrangements. People often feel staged because they are carefully posed. 2. He tested his color theories with small oil studies and charcoal drawings, building experiments like a scientist. 3. Though associated with dots, he sometimes used short strokes, lines, and hatchings. Pointillism is not a single rule, but a spectrum of methods. 4. Some observers read social critique into his park scenes. Leisure for some, labor for others. Each curiosity nudges us to look again, closer, then farther, so the visual trick completes. Georges Seurat asked painting to be both proof and poem. He made color an instrument of thought and turned the surface of a canvas into a machine for seeing. From the immense stillness of La Grande Jatte to the tight choreography of Le Chahut, his work teaches a patient way of looking. Study the mark, step back, let the eye compose. Even now, a century later, his dots still murmur. Color is not merely a sensation, but a social and optical event. Seurat's legacy is that exacting bridge between science and lyricism, a quiet revolution built point by point on the conviction that seeing can be remade.